welcome to Domo Palooza 2023. So I'm Bruce Harris, the Director of Financial Applications at Torchy's Tacos. Damn good tacos, serving those since the early 2000s. So just going to kind of go over some very innovative things we're doing with Domo. When we have the entire Domo platform, so having that entire platform opened up to us has just really allowed us to do very creative and innovative things that haven't ever done with the Domo platform. And I have used the Domo platform quite a lot. I've been working with Domo since 2017. 3 companies I've been at actually acquired Domo and insisted that they implement Domo, including Torchy's Tacos. And I've worked with Domo at 4 companies. So it's my American Express card. I don't leave home without it. It's my favorite application. And just as they keep expanding the platform, what they have opened up is just allow us to do very innovative and creative things. And I'll walk you through a few of those things we're doing right now. So, participated a little in the Domo podcast on data science, and then said this is my 3rd Domo Palooza presentation. So really excited to show you what we have here on tap. So serving up TNT, tacos and technology here at Torchy's Tacos, headquartered in Austin. So we'll show you how we are elevating employee satisfaction, doing some very creative things with labor and some next day tip solutions. So we can ensure that our employees have access to their tips the next day. It's a very complex process, but allowing them access to funds the next day instead of waiting up to 2 weeks to a pay. Options for them and freed up some capital. So it's been really, really cool. So we have an appetizer, what that use case is. We'll go into the main course, and then we'll finish it off with a little dessert. In a Vespa in the early 2000s, it started with Mike working out of a trailer in downtown Austin, hustling and delivering tacos and queso around Austin on his Vespa scooter, which we still have at headquarters. You can see some of the scratches on it as he's rode that thing around town. So, but started with that, just literally a trailer, and now we are over 100 stores. So a really awesome success story in about 15 states. We continue to expand. So if you really like Torchy's and we're not in your state, just drop us a line and we'll see. So what we are dealing with. So we have multiple data sources. We have accounting systems, we have payroll systems, we have point of sale systems. Those point of sale systems record every single transaction, every single taco that we sell every day. And it records every single clock in, clock out of every single employee. So lots of data that we are dealing with. Very, very complex calculations that before were manual, be done in Excel. It was taking days for people to do those calculations because it's a lot of data. It's complex calculations. There's different rules depending on bartender and non-bartender. Thousands of employees wanted to get that next day delivery because to get them access to tips, we needed to get that data to the company next day. Early in the morning, so as they come into work, they could access their prior day's tips. And then ultimately, we need to upload that data also to our HR system to record it for payroll and tax purposes. So a lot of moving pieces that we're dealing with. And why do you want to change? So hourly employees, they do earn tips as part of their compensation. They're paid via multiple channels. It's credit cards, over the web application, over the phone, cash tips, and cash tips are distributed differently based on job type. We have cashiers, we have runners, we have line cooks, we have barbacks, bartenders, and then we have shifts during the day. We have the AM and PM shift, and we have the all day. So you see many, many moving pieces. Stores were doing it, calculating tips using different methods. So we wanted to standardize that method so everybody was getting tips calculated the same way. We had to allow for corrections because there are always maybe hours aren't recorded or tips were recorded under the wrong job code. So we had to allow for corrections. So that got actually pretty complex. And we show how we did that. We wanted, and there was processes for where we had to distribute tips that were actually dedicated to specific employees, such as an employee may have come in early in the morning for a large catering order, and a specific tip on that order had to apply to them. So you see how many different flavors we have of this, and we needed to automate it all to get rid of the manual calculations totally. Then once again, upload that to our HR system so we can record it for payroll and tax purposes. And then ultimately that data is going to feed into our labor model so we can see exactly what hours are being worked on what job code. So then we can optimize that labor model and plan our stores based on different inputs. So what we set out to do, so the restaurant is divided into several areas. We have the dining area, the bar, the counter, the kitchen, the patio, and they asked us to automatically calculate these tips based on all those inputs we discussed before. And so we saw stores were using various different methods, so we had to standardize that. We needed to be fully automatic with no manual intervention, using that sales data, the clock in, clock out, location data, and then those corrections coming in. So that using that magic ETL, that great Domo magic ETL, that no code. So that is the basis of all our ETLs and transformations. So we had to combine the data, enrich it, get rid of the bad practices such as nulls and non-standard naming conventions. It had to be automated, had to be triggered based on certain events. Nobody could go in there manually and run it every day. We used some of the new functionality, such as now being able to write formulas and case statements in the magic ETL. So those case statements are incredibly powerful for data transformation. So opening that up is some of the new Domo functionality really enabled us to do that. And then some of the brand new features too, as we have the whole platform, is Writeback was key because we ingest this data, we transform it, but we have to get the data back out to a company called Daily Pay, and that's who it makes the funds available to the employees. So that Writeback was also very, very key to be able to get the data back out of our system to the Daily Pay company. So loading and transforming that data. So this is at a high level kind of what we're doing. You see the inputs, you see the multiple transformations that are going on with the data, the clock in, clock out, the store location, the payment and tip data, because the payments and tips are calculated separately and then joined together for that full allocation. We have calendars, we have time zone conversions, we have AM, PM shifts, we have job codes. So all that goes into play to calculate those tips correctly. So then that was kind of the front end. So on the second half of the calculation, then we need to enable all those correction scenarios. And we wanted to automate that as much as possible because correction scenarios get even more complex to, enable tips for specific employees, tips that were missed and other events. So what we did is we used the email connectors. So now that payroll can, if they are given a correction or of a tip that is specifically meant for one employee or other scenarios, they can now fill out an Excel spreadsheet, email that into Domo via the email connector. It's automatically added to the ETL. It automatically triggers the ETL. So anytime a correction comes in, they can fill it out. They can email it in. They're done. They know the transformation is going to run. It's going to output the correct data. So that also too was huge, of allowing the payroll team to actually change or make updates or corrections to this tip data, but we didn't want them to have to log in and manually upload spreadsheets or manually change data. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible, and those email connectors are absolutely fantastic in automating that process. So then at the end, we have to calculate that, and then we have to get the data out. So getting the data out, we use the Writeback connector. So then that goes to a company called Daily Pay. So that is once again fully automated, that once the ETL runs, it generates that output file, sends it out to Daily Pay. The Daily Pay makes those funds available the next morning. So that is how near real time it is. We take the tips at the end of the day, we do our calculations, ingest the data, do all the ETLs, then send that data out to Daily Pay in the morning. And then by the time the employees come in the morning, they have access to withdraw tips from the prior day. So once again, making that making all those tips available to the employees the next day has really enabled them to, from a financial standpoint, what they need to access, they don't need to wait 2 weeks for payroll. It's been a huge, huge, huge difference. It's helping with turnover, because turnover in certain industries we know is a little higher, but definitely want to give as many options to our employees to try and minimize that turnover and increase employee satisfaction. We know they do an amazing job. It's a very difficult job. So we want to make it, solve some pain points for them on a very, very difficult job they have to do. And then finally, we have to upload that to our HR system. So the HR team can then access that end result data. They can easily pull that down and then upload it to the HR system. And then for paycheck and tax purposes, all that data is recorded. So automatically, so now I got a process that the payroll team literally just spends a few minutes doing, that before it was taking hours per day to do on a very complex process of something that was done multiple different ways from multiple different stores. So we've standardized the process too. So really, really, really cool functionality, and in a kind of a very innovative way of actually getting employees paid, thanks to Domo. So that's the main course. That is a core of what we're doing. And you see that data will then be used in other methods for some very powerful forecasting and modeling around labor, because said our stores, it varies depending on the day of the week. It can vary depending on holidays. It can vary depending on things like National Taco Day and Cinco de Mayo, which are incredibly busy days. So we do have an ebb and flow, but we want to make sure we maximize the use of the employee's time and the use of our expenses. So that then all of that data that we transform is now we can output it to this forecast and labor modeling. Scheduling too. So that model then feeds into the schedule. So then when they can schedule employees, optimize those schedules, and literally just saving 1% or 2% on the labor results in hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So it is a massive impact of fine tuning that scheduling based on historical data, so we can see those trends. And then ultimately too, Domo does allow us to access to weather data. So using that weather data, we're working on this is a little future project. So pulling in, see how weather has affected historically our transactions, because once again, our scheduling is usually based on transactions. The more transactions, the more people we need at a store. So see how weather affects that. And then we can get that weather forecast and then put that into our future schedule of here's the forecast, here's the weather, here's the labor trends based on historical data and weather. And then even fine tune it even more. So if we have events coming up like bad weather or ice storms, like we seem to have in Texas now every year, or very nice weather, and we know there's going to be a lot more people, we can use that to dynamically schedule based on that weather data that Domo makes available. So our labor modeling, once again, another one of the results is that very powerful labor modeling. So now we have great insight as to literally how many people are working every single job in a store in 15-minute increments. And we can, once again, view that data based on any time frame, based on any job code, based on any transaction range. So we got multiple inputs to that data, multiple variables you can change. So we can see how the labor changes per store based on transaction range, based on days of the week, based on different time frames, even based on holidays. So there you can see at 15-minute increments, so you have great visibility into the number of employees at every single job code, at every single transaction range at our store, based on any time frame you want to see. So very powerful insights that we did not have before. But that is a result of all that input data that we need for tips. We can use the output data for very powerful transformations like this. So we can also see the average number of hours by job codes too. So we can see how many hours are being booked per job code, same inputs by transaction range, by day of the week, by holiday, by time frame too. So we have the number of employees, we have the hours, and those two factors go into our labor scheduling and modeling, allows us to fine tune that and optimize that. So the forecast data, once again, as I talked about before, is we're going to look at historical trends based on weather, because a lot of our stores have patios. So now that we have stores in about 15 states, the weather can vary considerably from up north to down in Florida, where it's always sunny. So we can see how those weather trends affect the transactions, affect the number of people scheduled, literally on a job by job basis based on 15-minute increments. So being able to see that and seeing how historical weather has affected that, we can grab that forecast data, combine that with our historical data, and use that to generate a much more optimized output based on historical labor trends and based on weather forecast. So once again, putting those two together, very, very powerful. And there's fine is kind of what the ultimate output is, the end game that we have created using Domo. So we see that forecast, we see those historical trends, we see the percentage by job code, by day of the week to see what has happened over the last few weeks in this view. And then using Domo's charting and Domo's forecasting functionality, we see those bars to the right. We can see that using Domo's forecast functionality, we can do that linear regression to see what we predict based on historical trends, what we predict for the next week of the need for hours, literally by job code, by day of the week. Because once again, our transactions fluctuate. Monday, usually the lowest transactional day, Saturday being the highest transactional day. And so those number of transactions can change significantly. And based on the change in transactions, that can significantly change the number of people needed at a store to handle those transactions. So that final output is, once again, allowing the employees access to those funds almost near real time the next day to be able to draw those if need be, increasing the employee satisfaction, reducing the employee turnover in an industry that is challenging and can have higher turnover rates, optimizing the scheduling, and just literally half a percentage point in optimizing that scheduling and expenses leads to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So it is a very powerful effect that allows us to realize great savings just by optimizing under 1%. And optimizing those labor expenses, allows us to function better, increase that employee satisfaction, reduce turnover, and just operate much more efficiently. So very innovative use case for Domo, allowing employees to get paid and ultimately see how that outputs into labor scheduling and labor optimization. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy Domopalooza 2023. It's been an honor presenting, and hopefully you enjoyed the really cool and innovative things we're doing. And said we have many more innovative things on our plate. So we're really just getting started. Said it's a relatively small team here at Torchy's Tacos, but Domo and its Magic ETL has really allowed us democratization of analytics. I have no formal training in Domo, and nobody else does either. But what we've been able to do in Domo, you see, with absolutely no formal training, take this and said we're really in the early innings of what we can do. A very powerful platform. Democratization really allows people to get up and running very, very quickly using no code, very powerful platform, and even advanced into data science. So that end-to-end process using Domo, amazing results at Torchy's, and we're very excited what's happened, and we're really looking forward to all the really cool things we're doing in the future. So thank you very much.